Aloha, namaste. This is Radha Home, and I'm here with our new moon forecast for this Friday, May 19th, happening at 5:53 a.m. Hawaii time, which is 8:53 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And this new moon is happening in a star called Krittika in sidereal Taurus. This star is about cutting or dividing. And it's actually the place the moon is the most exalted out of all the places the moon can be. This is the one where we operate with the most clarity of sight, because Krittika is ruled by Agni, the fire god, and fire gives us sight. The most capacity to digest our experiences, because fire also is that element that helps us digest. And it also brings us this capacity to sort of cut ourselves off from the drama, if you will, the excess ups and downs that happen in our mind and emotions. The moon is this constantly moving orb. And in our world, in our inner world, we're always trying to reach for something, to attach ourselves to something. And in the earth sign of Taurus, we have something to ground us, something to hold us, and daily things like taking care of ourselves, eating food, maybe taking walks or doing gentle exercises, making love, having baths and sensual pleasure, participating in artistic endeavors, particularly utilitarian and artistic endeavors, not just like taking time out to paint, but maybe painting part of your house, or making something that you can use. There's this earth tangible practical quality, and Taurus is a four-legged creature that's moving forward, but it moves at a much more plodding pace than the preceding sign of Aries. Everything is much more slow and involved, and there's this quality of really stopping to smell the roses, enjoying the food you're eating, enjoying your bath, not just taking a quick cold shower, but actually luxuriating a little bit. So this element where we are willing to kind of give ourselves and our bodies some attention allows our mind to calm down. And for many of us, you could just see that in your daily life. If you're all over the place and you're anxious and you're running from place to place to place, and you just take the time to sit down and eat, you might feel better. Or you take the time to, give yourself some, a massage, or even just a bath or a shower, can really change your entire mindset. So this is one of the reasons Taurus is such a grounding place for the moon. And we really have this capacity to stay clear and connected to what our actual experiences are, our sensations in the body, as opposed to sort of getting on this emotional roller coaster and projecting what other people are doing or what's happening to us, and moving into all these other states that the moon can feel, our mind and our emotions can feel when the moon is traversing other signs, particularly Scorpio, right across the way, where we're the most dramatic and the most emotional and the most stuck in these sort of shadows and projections. The star of Krittika has this really cool story, and it's actually the birth of Mars, or Kartikeya, who is the son of Shiva and Parvati, is most famously, but he actually is the son of many different beings, as the story will relay. And this brings that element of discipline and courage and action and capacity to face our fears that Krittika carries also, because it is a star that bridges Aries and Taurus. So it's not just in Taurus, and it's where we're taking that warrior spirit that we have and that courage and bringing it into like an everyday life and family life and some level of connectivity with others and some peace and harmony, as opposed to just kind of this raging fire trying to start something new and being completely self-centric in our own desire. It's like where we want to actually connect with other people, but still maintain our own self and our own needs and our own desires. So in the story, there's this nymph named Swaha, and often you'll hear Swaha at the end of, like, in a fire ceremony, there's an offering, and it's Swaha with each offering to the fire. Well, Swaha has a crush on Agni, the fire. Of course, why not? She's constantly being offered to him. And he has his own feelings for the wives of the sages, the 7 sages that sit around his fire and make ceremony. He's seeing their beautiful wives sitting there and developing feelings for them. And he really doesn't care much for Swaha. He's just not noticing her. Maybe her rising sign is in the 12th house of his. That's a joke for people who know Vedic astrology. So Swaha decides to impersonate each of the wives of the sages and seduce Agni. And she does so successfully with 6 of the wives. She impersonates them, makes love to Agni, and then she turns herself into a bird and carries his seed to this lake in a mountain of sunrise, this place far away that is the mountain of sunrise, and she drops the seed there. So she does this 6 times, and then Agni's seed, the fire god's seed, is 6 times in this lake. Well, in the meantime, there's this demon called Tarakasura, and he's beginning to take over all 3 worlds, as these demons do. And the gods are like, we need to stop him. We need a child. This demon got a boon. They all get boons, because, and really, I love the fact that they all get boons, because it really illustrates, to me at least, why just doing asana practice is not a fully spiritual experience. Because while we can have a spiritual experience while doing asana, the goal of strengthening our body and reaching these siddhis, these powers that we get as a result of doing not just asana, but meditation, is of the ego if we're not offering it to something else. If we're not coming from the place of bhakti yoga, which is devotion or love to something beyond us. If we're not coming from a place of karma, of selfless service. If we're stuck in this place of, wanting to attain some kind of power, or wanting to transcend time, or wanting to, have our bodies be flexible and strong and thin, or whatever other stories we have, then we've missed the point of yoga, right? We're not doing yoga. So these demons are all beings that have done this. They've done this sadhana. They've done this, austere practices for long, long periods of times. I mean, many, many hundreds of years. And Shiva is usually the one giving them the boon. Shiva is consciousness, right? And he's like, you've done the work, you've done the meditation, you've done this, you get a boon, because he's not the part of us that needs the love, the devotion, the service, and even the Gyan yoga, which is the wisdom. So they get a boon, but there's always a caveat, because they can't just become immortal, right? They all, of course, would just become immortal, but they can't. So there has to be some little Achilles heel that can get them. And in Tarakasura's case, it's that a 7-day-old being can kill him. Well, of course, most 7-day-old beings cannot do that, human beings. And so it requires a god. They need a god to have a 7-day-old child, because only a 7-day-old child of a god would be able to do this. So of course they approach Shiva, because who better to do this with? And Shiva and Parvati, his partner, are making love for eons, trying to make this happen. But they have some pretty epic lovemaking, and the earth is starting to shake, and volcanoes are erupting, and there's cracks, and everything's exploding, and the oceans are sloshing, and it's like, enough, it's too much. They're like, stop, we can't. We'll figure out another way to get a 7-day-old child. You guys are literally destroying the earth with your lovemaking. And in that moment, Shiva was just about to release his seed into his wife. And because they were interrupted, it flies out and goes down to the earth. And Parvati is pissed. She was just about to get pregnant, and now she's not. And the earth, Boom Devi, is instead holding this seed. Well, Parvati curses her. Boom Devi can't have my child, can't have this seed. And so Boom Devi gives it over to Ganga, to the river goddess. And the river goddess starts to carry the seed, and Parvati curses her, because you can't have my seed either. You can't have my husband's seed either. And so Ganga carries it all the way to this place in the mountains, this cauldron at this point, because it's burning with 6 times of Agni's seed and deposits Shiva's seed in there. So now there's this boiling pot with Shiva, who is, yes, consciousness in his most auspicious form, but he's also Rudra, the howler, and the part of creation that is destruction, that destroys everything so that it can come back to being again, mixed with fire. And 6 doses of fire in this already epic mountain locale, and the lake just starts burbling and gurgling and spouting and smoking and steaming, and all of a sudden this red howling child comes wailing out, and the gods are like, wow, this thing is terrifying. There's no way we can keep this being, like, this will destroy all the earth. It's just raging around, flailing about, and they're like, this is not a good plan. They don't necessarily know that Swaha had put Agni seed there too. So they at this point they tell the sages what happened, that their wives had mated with Swaha, and the sages cut their wives off, Krittika. They cut them off, they divorced them, and they cast them into the sky. And we know this constellation, Krittika, as Pleiades. It's the more well-known name for it. And so the women, these wives, are now cast off as stars in the sky. There's one of the 7 that does not submit to Swaha's impersonation. Arundhati has such strong connection to her husband Vasitya that she can't be impersonated, and so she stays with her husband. And you can see it's like a little bit separated in the sky, that 7th star. So this sorry, I lost my train there for a minute. So the sages cut her off, and the gods are cutting these women off, and the gods bring this howling, wailing child to those women and say, put poison on your breasts and feed him. He must die. We can't, this isn't working. So they take the child in, and they're going to do this, but he's a baby. And even though he's howling, they feel love for him. And they've lost their husband, they've lost their place in society. And they're like, we're going to take care of this baby. We're not going to poison him. So they feed him and they nurse him, and he calms down, just like our mind and emotions calm down when we feed him. It's like, the rage and horror when our needs are not being met. But then when they are being met, we calm down. And in this case, he's such a warrior that he becomes very centered and focused, and has that discipline and that courage that Mars brings to the table, and that action. And in 7 days, he is definitely ready to take on Tarakasara, and he takes him on with this whole army and conquers him very easily. And so now everybody loves this child, right? He's conquered Tarakasara, he's calm, he's a warrior. Who doesn't want this child? All of them do. Shiva and Parvati, it's our child, Ma Ganga, it's my child. I carried him for a while. The Boom Devi, the earth goddess, I carried him. Agni is my seed too, it's my child. And these Krittika, we nursed him, we cared for him. He's our child. And so the child divides himself into 6 parts so that he can go to each of his different parents. And then he becomes Kartikeya. And so, and Kartikeya is the association, or the lord of Mars, the planet. And so that's the story of this nakshatra. And it really shows us a lot about how we're moving from this sort of fiery plane into this earth plane, and how we're grounding, and how we're finding our way. We need that fire, we need that determination, and we need a direction, we need a cause, we need something that we're doing. Sometimes in Taurus, we can get a little plodding, as we get into Rohini and deeper into the sign, there's this part of us that just gets caught up in the pleasure and caught up in the enjoyment, and we forget what we're doing or why we're doing it. And we can get wayward because other people like us a lot, because we're calm and centered and pleasurable and beautiful and all those things. And so this specific place of Krittika is so important, because it really shows us how we can take that direction, that fire, that insight we have, that capacity to digest experiences and not hold on to them and not grasp them, and move them into the world of possessions and needs and desires and family and all the things, but maintain that capacity to cut things off as they're not needed, both within ourselves, cutting off our, our over emotionality or over attachment in our mind, with others, attachments that aren't serving us, that are dragging us down, delusions we might have, or stories we might be told, or projections or lies or things such as, that their wives had been unfaithful, which they hadn't been, which is an important thing to understand too, right? Not everything that we see is right. And we've really been learning that lesson through the eclipses, as Rahu was joined the sun and Mercury, and now moving closer to Jupiter. And I'll share my screen so we can see the chart. We've really seen how much illusion can draw us, and how many things we don't really know. And yet sometimes we have this profound insight and we're very right. And it's important to know the difference. It's important to know how delusional you are and how insightful you are. And everybody is not playing with the same deck of cards there. Some people are more clear in their vision. And yes, practices like meditation and yoga are going to help you be more clear. But a lot of it can be seen in someone's chart, how much clarity they have and how much delusion they have. So we can see Jupiter is moving forward at 6:29, and Rahu is moving backwards because the nodes move backwards at 9:47. So these two are going to be joined very soon. But Mercury has now gone direct and is already past Rahu, going the other way. Rahu's going this way, Mercury's going that way. The sun is now, officially in Taurus. And so we have lost a lot of the illusions we have around our power, our communication, and our connection with others. The illusion that's coming with Jupiter is more around our beliefs, our ideals, our teachings, and of course, whatever Jupiter rules for you in your chart. One of the things that is interesting here when we're talking about this story of Krittika and this new moon that's happening here, which is like the new cycle, right? This month is going to be a Taurus month. There'll be an apex when we have our full moon in Scorpio. And I know a lot of people believe we already had that, but when we have that full moon in Scorpio to show us our emotionalism again, and to show us, hey, we can't just be all about plodding along and having this, nice existence. We also do have to look at the shadows. We do have to invite them up and have a seat at the table. The drama isn't all just drama. It's pointing to very important things that need to be looked at also. So this will be a turning point in the month, the full moon. But in this cycle that we're in, we have Mars, the ruler of Aries, Jupiter, Rahu, Mercury, all of these things here, and also the ruler of Scorpio when we get there in 2 weeks, debilitated, right? He's now in Cancer in his state of debilitation. Well, why is Mars debilitated in Cancer? Well, if Mars is discipline and courage and action and individuation, that part of us that strengthens ourself and identifies with ourself and is self-centric, self-interested, self-propelled, and it's in Cancer where we want to connect and we want to love people and we want to have unconditional love. But when certain planets, if the moon's in Cancer, beautiful, maybe we're giving true unconditional love. But other planets, when they're in Cancer, are giving unconditional love, but it's actually quite conditional. It's not true that it's unconditional. We want something back, right? In Mars's case, we might start blaming other people for our lack of discipline. We might feel like a victim. We might get very weepy. We might take everything very personally and then get angry about it, but hide our anger, not have a clear, direct path for it. And of course, we're not as likely to show up for our daily practices. So we're more likely to not, we don't have a channel. We don't have somewhere to send it out. So this is why we do our daily practices. Literally, we do our daily practices when Mars is in Aries, in his own sign, so that when he gets to Cancer, we're still doing our daily practices because it's just part of our habit, part of our thing to wake up, turn off the alarm, get on your yoga mat or sit in meditation or go take a run or go surf or whatever it is you do. You do this when it's easy because it's going to be hard at some point. And when it's hard, the people who show up, I was a yoga teacher for a long time, and the people who show up when it's hard are the people who do it every day, who have consistently created this rhythm for themselves, where it's no longer a thought, am I going to do it today? It's just something they do. They automatically do. So if you have practices, keep with them. You might find that you want to shave a few minutes off, or you want to do a little bit less strenuous of one, especially while we're in this Taurus cycle. You know, Mars will be here till the end of June, but particularly in the Taurus cycle, we might find ourselves getting a little more lazy, right? And we have the sun is our power, our authority, our capacity to lead, and our connection to source. And he's in Taurus too. It's not just the moon. The moon's exalted there. The sun is not exalted there. The sun's a little lazy. It's like, I don't really want to lead. I don't really want to follow. I just want to eat some food. You know, I don't want to be bothered, and I don't want to be told what to do. I want to be able to kind of plod along at life's pace, but I don't also want to, you know, have to direct a bunch of other people and tell them what to do. So our leadership skills are pretty muted here in Taurus. Our capacity to really, you know, light a fire and get going on something is not going to be particularly lit over the next month, since the two fiery planets are in muted signs, earth and water. There's a lot of emotionalism there. Venus, the ruler of Taurus, where these planets are, is in Ardra, which is ruled by Rudra, the fierce form of Shiva that is the howler. So there might be a lot of howling going on, you know, and we're hiding it with our passive aggressive behavior, but deep down we're howling, and a lot of destruction. Ardra brings destruction. So we're, you know, also sort of maybe intellectually or rationalizing in our relationships, using words and humor and objectivity in order to relate to other people, as opposed to really, you know, being in integrity with our emotions, or even really desiring connection as much through that, you know, Venusian lens of wanting to relate with other people. You know, there's a desire to connect, but not overly. There's this also this quality of, you know, wanting to connect with everyone, and not necessarily being super intimate. So our intimacy in this moment is with ourselves in many ways, and getting really cozy with our own emotions and feelings, especially the ones that come up around anger or sadness or feeling like a victim, and really taking care of ourselves, taking care of our bodies, taking care of our minds, and not taking everything so personally, you know, really allowing ourselves to take a moment and eat something, or take a bath, or go for a swim, or go for a walk, or do something to nourish yourself when these things come up. And then, of course, we have this Jupiter Rahu situation, and Saturn is giving his drishti. Right now, Saturn's drishti is actually almost exact on Mercury. So we can see that it just moved out of this for the new moon. So even while I'm filming this, it's pretty much, it's moving into the state of exact. And then here we can see it's only 7 seconds difference. This can bring us some pause in our communication. We already just had the retrograde experience. So we experienced a lot of delays, and we might feel like, I want to move forward. And Mercury in Aries can be very fiery, as we've been talking about for the last month or so. You know, there can be a lot of quick words spoken, and quick choices made, and this is right and this is wrong, and you know, not always being conscientious, kind, and amicable in our speech. And having Saturn give that drishti there can really give us the pause, the humility, and the commitment to using clearer or cleaner or less aggravating communication, particularly if we've learned some lessons over the last few weeks in the retrograde and eclipse cycle. And then we also have the drishti is on Jupiter and Rahu as well. It's just a little bit less exact there. The Mercury is very exact. And Jupiter and Rahu will be exact. Let's go like a week. Go another week. Okay, so now it's past it. So yeah, they're coming up on exact here, June 1st, May 31st to June 1st. We're seeing these two. So May 31st through June 2nd, we're seeing like an exact Rahu Jupiter drishti. Now, this is going to be a big deal for people who are Pisces rising, people who are Sagittarius rising, because it's their ruling planet. For the Mercury rising people, for Gemini and Virgo rising people, this is going to have to do with their seventh lord, their relationships, their partners, like deep obsession here. You know, Rahu's where we're just like, make something so exaggerated, so big, really a lot of illusion and a lot of this sort of stop and start, because we're not really willing to assimilate anything. We're not listening. We're not using that power of Agni to assimilate and digest our experiences. And we don't always see clearly. We put a lot of illusion around this. On a more general sense, it's going to be, you know, exaggerating our teachers, our teachings, our beliefs, what we think is true. This can really polarize us in the greater community, right? This has to do with things like politics and social issues that come up, and the Facebook clickbait kind of thing, where people get really like, ah, this is my opinion. And then of course, Mercury is here. and hopefully that, you know, that humility and pause of Saturn will still be reflecting, even though the drishti will no longer be very strong. But, you know, that speak before you think quality is very powerful in when Mercury is in Aries. And at this point, you can see on June 2nd, we have Venus actually moved in here. I think that happened. Let's see what happened. It happened on the 29th. It probably happened on the 29th later this day. So we're seeing that while these two are direct and we have all these exaggerated views on our beliefs and all these things, we have Venus now moved into Cancer as well. And Venus and Mars, first of all, anywhere Venus and Mars together, we have that push and pull. We want to connect, we want to disconnect. I want my individuation, I want my partnership. So that's a push and pull that can bring a lot of sexual energy, but it can also bring a lot of fighting. But Venus in Cancer has another problem, different from the Mars problem, but not too different. When Venus is in Cancer, we really overgive to our partners. We feel like love, the conditional love of Venus, is very much the same as the love that a mother might give to their child. And we give and give and give, assuming, hoping, and planning for the other person to give back to us what we're giving. And that doesn't work out the way that we think it will. Or even if it does work out and the person is also overgiving, we might not see it. We might not be like, oh, this person's giving so much, I feel gratitude. We might be like, I'm not getting enough, even when they've done quite a lot, which is a common problem. So we have two planets that are challenged with one another in a sign that they're both challenged in. You know, and Mars is particularly challenged here, but Venus is also quite challenged in Cancer. There's people who have Venus in Cancer do struggle a lot with their boundaries in relationships. And so this and the strong beliefs and the strong words, you know, that can create some friction in our coupleships. So something to reflect upon as you move forward. And I will come to a close here because this has been long enough, but I wish you a happy new moon. This is also the birthday, Shani Jayanti, of Saturn. So let's call upon those blessings of Saturn for humility and capacity to commit, and a capacity to roll up our sleeves and do the hard work and really learn from all the things we've had. Every experience we have, you know, we can just keep going through experiences, or we can learn and mature from them and do things differently the next time. And every time we make that choice, every time we pause before we speak, every time we pause before we act, you know, or really think through our relations with people and how we're engaging with them, we make an empowered choice, a choice to shift our future karma. You know, our karma is our actions today, and that bring us what our choices are tomorrow. And so many bridges get burned, and so many opportunities go to the wayside, and so many things that we wanted to do or wanted to start end up never happening because of our ego. And so we have a real opportunity to humble ourselves here. Namaste.